It's no small secret that a lot of Helldivers want even harder difficulties. Difficulty 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, just like the original Helldivers. However, as I played a match this morning, I don't think a traditional difficulty 11, 12, 13, 14, whatever may have you, is necessarily the right direction to go in that I don't want it to just be difficulty 10 a little bit harder. And here's why. I played a match today that was unlike any other match I've ever had. I matched with 3 other randoms, and we completed a difficulty 10 dive on destroy 3 different egg nests in under 20 minutes, completing the entire map, all samples, and only 2 deaths. It was an incredible run. Like, I felt like we were SEAL Team 6. We were absolutely devastating the bugs. So much so that when we called in the Pelican to extract, not a single bug spawned. They gave up. We broke their morale. And as everyone knows, we had some huge buffs, and we've got another patch coming out soon that's going to give us even more buffs. And while everyone says it is more fun, and it is undeniable it's more fun, I do miss being able to engage in challenge if I wanted to have a challenge. Be able to one-shot factory striders is cool, but also it kind of gets old after a while. So of course, me and other people are thinking, well, difficulty 11 will help solve this problem. But if they just release difficulty 11 like they did 10, where like, well, here's 1 or 2 new units and a couple more spawn-ins, I don't think that's going to be enough to actually make it a better difficulty. In the match we currently had that I was just talking about, if they'd had 1 or 2 more spawn-ins per call-in, I don't really think that would have made a difference. Maybe 1 or 2 more deaths at most. So this is what I think they should do to make the next difficulty actually difficult. And I don't think we need a difficulty 11. Rather, I think they should give us a long list of mission modifiers, and you can select whichever ones you want. So instead of having difficulty 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, all the way up to 20, just have difficulty 10 and difficulty 10 plus. And in fact, you could even add that plus to other difficulties, maybe for people who are on difficulty 5 or 6 and they want to add a little bit more difficulty without going up. Or they want to add a challenge without going to difficulty 7, 8, or 9. And for every difficulty modifier that you add, you just get more experience, maybe more samples, maybe more money. Although I'd really like if they could figure out another incentive altogether. I'm working with the framework that we have right now. And I'm just going to rattle off some modifiers that I think would be fun, challenging, difficult, different things like that, but obviously they could add so many, many, many more. Number 1, endless swarms. Make it so the call-ins don't stop. Yes, maybe reduced so that after 1 minute or 2 minutes they're not calling in nearly as much, but make it so there is a never-ending horde encroaching on you. 2, interference. Bring back the old interference. I know a lot of people hated it, but only be able to bring in 2 or 3 stratagems instead of 4. That adds a whole new level of challenge, and again, I know people hated that, but making it an optional thing that you can choose to turn on and choose to engage with, I think would be able to add that level of difficulty back into the game without simply throwing more enemies at you. Number 3, surplus munitions. I like to imagine that we have a lot of leftover weapons and utilized abilities from the first game. And I absolutely love when they build that in-game lore and universe, saying the reason why some of our weapons were defective or why things weren't working is because they were surplus or they were old or something of that nature. If you engage the surplus munitions button, it means we're using rockets and ammo that are old, very old, which means they're not as effective. Giving your rockets a chance to deal less damage and not one-shot things, your machine guns to have random damage on every bullet, I think would add a little bit of chaos and another layer again for difficulty that's not just here's more enemies. 4, mutations mode. Give the enemies we currently have some crazy buffs. Maybe double movement speed. Could you imagine a charger charging you double or quadruple speed? Or being unable to outrun a Bile Titan? There's so many things you could do. Extra armor, extra damage. I'm still a fan of having a planet where the automatons and the bugs work together and you have some weird, like, bugs that have missile pods attached to them, or hulks that can run like chargers. There's plenty of options there. Number 5, limited resources. One of the things I love/hated about Deep Rock Galactic was that the supplies could only be called in when you'd found enough stuff to call in a supply. And honestly, between a supply backpack, having the supply call-in available as soon as it is, as well as being able to scavenge weapons and ammos and grenades and stims off the ground, like, you're never hurting for supplies. So greatly reducing the amount of times you can call in supplies, maybe twice in an entire mission, and not having as many to scavenge off the ground, means you have to make every bullet count more, and that's, again, difficulty without more enemies. This one, I personally wouldn't probably ever be able to use, but I think it would be fun to be able to give challenges to squads for building an entire team around, since I usually only play in single player mode or random mode. But making it so like only certain stratagems can be brought once or certain stratagems aren't available at all, forcing people to be a little bit more strategic around what they're bringing or how they're building with their team, I think would be a great way to increase the difficulty. Like, if the team could only have one orbital weapon between all four of them, like only one orbital napalm and that's it, no other orbitals at all, and like one recoilless rifle and one machine gun, I think it would be really interesting to see how people kind of build around that and overcome that challenge. I think that would be really cool. And again, because it's completely optional for people who say, hey, that sounds like it sucks, well, you don't have to. One of the things that I'm always an advocate for in games is more options, more accessibility, more options, more customization. It can never hurt a game to have more of those options available to people. Also, in the vein of Deep Rock Galactic, I would love a requisition mode where you can only call things in once, say, you've destroyed enough things or done enough objectives or killed enough creatures, whatever they want to count as points towards it. So instead of coming down fully armed, you have to say, okay, well, we need to go take out the small nests first so that we each have one of our stratagems available. Then we'll be able to take on bigger nests. And then eventually take out bunkers or large nests or objectives now that we've unlocked a little bit of our abilities or we have enough requisitions for it. It would also mean having to go back to your body and scavenge things would be way more important, since you wouldn't necessarily be able to call something back down if you didn't have enough requisition for it. Okay, I lied. I have one more. In Metal Gear Solid 5, there were challenge missions that I absolutely loved, where you dropped in with absolutely nothing and you had to scavenge all of your gear off the battlefield to complete the mission. I have no idea how hard that would be to program, but I think that would be really cool if some missions you dropped down and you literally only had your sidearm and you had to go find your main weapons and find different stratagems to be able to pick up, something that made it so exploring the map was way more rewarding and also dangerous and difficult. Now that I'm done rambling about that, back onto the whole topic, which is just adding difficulty 11, I don't think is going to be a good move. We want difficulty 11, we want more challenge available to us. But honestly, when I play the game, I have a hard time telling the difference between difficulty 7, 8, 9, 10. They all kind of mesh together, and often, if your AI director either loves you or hates you, they can feel almost exactly the same. The only difference being like the mega nests only showing up on difficulty 10. And I have a real fear that difficulty 11 is just going to be that, okay, well, there's going to be one more dropship, or there's going to be one more wave that comes in out of bug breaches, and that's it. That's the only thing that separates it. And they can't necessarily keep adding new features only for higher level difficulties. As we've seen, the community doesn't like that. They don't like to be locked out of things or feel like they have to be a certain level of get good before they can experience the full game. So if they took the time now, ahead of time, to create a evergreen system where they could just add on more and more boosters or more modifiers or more randomizers that you can apply to every single level of the game, I think that would give people a lot more control, a lot more freedom, and for people like me who do occasionally want more challenge or to do challenge modes, giving us that option would be wonderful. Obviously, no matter what, when difficulty 11 comes out, I will be playing that, I'll make videos on that, and I will enjoy it for what it is. But something's telling me that when we get that next round of buffs, that is not going to be nearly as challenging as people want it to be. With all of that said, as always, leave a comment down below on what you think difficulty 11 should be like. Do you want modifiers? Do you want it to be just a little bit harder than difficulty 10? Do you want it to lock you out? Do you want to have special features that difficulty 10 doesn't have? I always love hearing from my community and what people think. I love the game, so I love the community. And quick shout out to those 3 players who made that last game way too easy, but in a fun way. And finally, as always, thank you for watching my video, and have a blessed day. As a bonus to this video, now that the other one's closed, if you don't care about this, you can of course feel free to close out of it, leave. Nothing important is going to happen after this point. I am looking at putting together a Helldivers D&D game and doing a live play podcast for it for expanding on the lore. What do you think of this premise? 4 Helldivers are sent through the purple, the wormhole that we opened up that we don't know what's on the other side of it. And the 4 Helldivers who go through find themselves in the magical world of Faerun. And it's up to them to spread democracy to the undemocratic people who inhabit the magical world of Faerun. Would you watch? Would you enjoy that? Leave a comment down below.